All right, it says we are live. So what's up, everybody? Thanks for joining. First live stream here in the new house, the new office, and all that. So hopefully you guys can hear me okay. Still using the same mic setup and all that. So hopefully everything's good. If someone can give me a little thumbs up or something so I know everyone can hear me, we should be good. But looks like my microphone's picking stuff up and everything. So hopefully we're all good. I see we have new media here has joined us to moderate again tonight. So thank you so much for joining, man. I really appreciate that. And I see we already have a few people here that are commenting. Sounds like everything's good. Awesome. Thank you, guys. I appreciate that. So welcome to another live stream. Sorry, this one's about a week later than normal. Usually I try and do them in the first weekend of the month, but was very busy with moving and a little bit chaotic the past week and a half here, getting settled into the new house, had a few issues with it and stuff. So had to get all that sorted out. So, but yeah, I'm glad to be able to do this again this month. Next month will be a little bit iffy as well, because we will be having our little baby that's going to be arriving sometime in early April. Who knows when exactly, but so yeah, that one we'll have to wait and see. This might be the last one for a month or two. We'll have to see, how that all plays out, and how well I react to not having as much sleep and all that kind of stuff. But anyway, in the meantime, yeah, thanks for joining on this one. And like usual, I'm going to give priority to anyone who does a super chat or anything like that. I want to make sure those questions get answered first, of course. But I'll try and answer as many as I can here, and we'll hang out for about 2 hours here. And yeah, should be a good time. So I see we already have one super chat. Huge thanks to the AMG Criminal for a super chat. He says, got an 09 C63 yesterday and already madly in love. That's awesome. Congrats. Those things sound so good. Even just stock, those things sound amazing. I never actually drove or reviewed one of those old C63s, but they're very sweet. I had a couple of friends back in the day that had those, and they were awesome. So congrats on getting that. Hopefully you enjoy it. And yeah, I don't know if you have any mod plans or anything, but like I said, they seem to be amazing just the way they are. But yeah, thank you for the super chat here. All right, other questions I see right at the top. Eco Blue Mustang joined here in the beginning and said, what am I most excited about, the next gen WRX or the next gen Mustang? I don't know. I kind of am. I'm not really super interested in either of them, if that might sound kind of crazy, but I'm a little less invested in the developments in the Mustang because I have my perfect Mustang. I'm not planning on upgrading to a new one. I don't really care what they do with the Mustang lineup at this point because I have, in my opinion, the perfect Mustang for me. And, I obviously want to see it continue to be awesome and stuff. And maybe if they do another Bullet in another 10 years or something, maybe I could add it to the fleet or something if, conditions allow. But yeah, and same thing with the WRX. I've already mentioned in past live streams, I'm probably not going to get a dad car or any kind of third additional car because Beth's Mercedes will be totally fine for baby hauling duties. And we'll also have press cars basically every week. So it'll be very rare that I ever need to have a back seat. Like if I have to use the Mustang, I can in a pinch, but most likely I'll be pretty well covered. So I don't need to buy a four-door car or anything. The new WRX, I'm hoping that they, do something good with that. Just for all of you who I know have been waiting and waiting for a new WRX for years and been chomping at the bit. So hopefully they, come out swinging for the fans and, have something pretty impressive. I don't know. We'll have to see how Subaru does. I'm excited about the new BRZ, I think a little bit more than the new WRX. But I don't know. Subaru, they do seem to value their enthusiasts and stuff, but it does seem like they are kind of more focused on, just the mainstream stuff. So I don't know. I hope they don't water down the WRX too much. That's kind of, I guess, a little bit of a concern of mine. And yeah, I don't know. I know they're big into wanting to have the eyesight tech and everything. So I really hope that they still allow the manual, which is a very strong seller for the WRX. So hopefully it'll stick around for a while. But yeah, there's a lot of unanswered questions still about the new WRX. So we'll see how that all plays out. But yeah, to answer your original question, I'm not super excited to see either one of them. I think the BRZ is the one I'm most excited about. Makes me feel all sentimental. All right, we got all kinds of questions and discussions here. It's awesome to see you guys also talking together in the comments. That's what it's all about, just hanging out and talking cars on a Saturday evening here. So other questions we have. Jillian L says, where is the flow? So yeah, I know multiple people were a little bit bummed in the weekly update that I finally got a haircut after, I don't know, it's been probably 6 or 7 months since I got a haircut. I was just holding off because all the COVID numbers were so high and I just wanted to play it safe, but finally got a haircut, and yeah, it feels so much lighter. I'm not a fan of long hair on myself. It just kept getting in my eyes and being super annoying. So I'm happy to be back to the short hair. But thanks for joining, Jill. We have Fastline says, my mom asked me if I want a 2021 Chevy Corvette convertible. That was a dream. Yeah, those are fun cars. I really love the one I had, even driving with the top down in the winter, like I was doing a few weeks ago with that thing. They are a blast. That is a dream car for sure. All right, we have Yadvinder says to make sure to change your clocks. Yeah, I forgot. That's coming up tonight here. We spring forward an hour, which is very exciting. So that's it's crazy. Time is just flying. I don't know if it's just you guys, if it's just me, or it's you guys as well, but time seems to be flying. So Peter says, I have a 2020 G70 3.3T all-wheel drive. Have you heard if the new body style for 2022 will still be as sporty and fun to drive? Based on everything that I've seen, it's just a cosmetic change. You know, they didn't change the engine. They didn't change anything else. So I'm pretty sure it should be just as good as the current G70, just with different looks. You know, so I don't think they would really change much. So if you're looking to get into a newer one or something, I'm pretty sure it should live up to the same great stuff you have in the 2020. So yeah. And anyway, other questions here. Daniel says, thoughts about the Corolla hatchback as a first car with a manual. I think that'd be a really good first manual, especially if you're just learning, just getting started. I think that's a really good car because it has the intelligent manual transmission, which is, you know, really cool, where it'll rev match your downshifts, but it also kind of smooths out your shifts, and it does a little more of an active assist with the manual than any other car out there, and it's really cool. I will say the only tricky thing about the Corollas is it is a little bit hard to be smooth with it, even if you are a seasoned manual transmission driver, just because the flywheel seems to be a little bit slow, and so like rev matching your downshifts on your own is a little tricky, and there's a lot of rev hang in that. So I found myself, whenever I was banging through the gears in the manual Corollas, is that, you know, the revs are hanging too high, and then when I'm shifting into the next gear, it like jerks again and gets a little lurchy because, you know, the revs don't fall fast enough. So a little bit of a heavier flywheel, or they just, you know, put that in for fuel economy or whatever. But that's the only thing I don't love about that. But most modern manuals seem to have some degree of rev hang, even just a little bit. But yeah, you know, so that's the only thing I will say about that. But, you know, you're going to get that in the Civic as well. You're going to get that in most other manuals that aren't super performance oriented. Like a Civic Type R is a little bit better. The STI is old fashioned, so that doesn't have much rev hang, although there is still a little bit. The Mustangs and stuff actually don't really have it much. Same goes for Camaro and stuff like that. But regardless, I think that that's a fantastic first car. Again, you'll just don't feel too bad though if you're not super smooth, because even me, I was tough to be smooth with that. But if you have the intelligent manual transmission mode on, it should help you out a lot and be a really great first car. And front wheel drive cars, I think, are always best for new drivers as well, because it allows you to kind of have more manageable handling dynamics and stuff. You don't have to worry about a back end kicking out on you or anything like that. Front wheel drive is really the way to go. So yeah, I think it's a great choice. Tu Chang, thank you so much for the super chat. He says, stimulus hits, Matt goes live. Girlfriend wanted to get stuff done, but that's what she gets for making the grand joke. Also, hello, Mr. Potter. Yeah, so he's following up on some comments in the weekly update, where I think last week had the long hair, and some people have commented that my office here looks like I'm like in a closet or something. So he said I was basically Harry Potter at that point. Yeah, so at least I got the haircut here, and yeah, but thanks for joining too. I really appreciate it, and thank you so much for the super chat here. And yeah, it's good times for all of us here with the stimulus. I'm sure some of you will probably be buying car parts and stuff. I know that's a popular thing among the car community. You get that money in there, and all of a sudden it's time to shop. But I'm sure many people are using that stuff for things they need to, though. It's still been rough times for a lot of people, I know. Newt says, rev hang in the newer Subarus is awful. Biggest complaint with my Crosstrek, I guess it's due to emissions. Yeah, that's what the consensus I've seen is that it's just an emissions thing, which is so dumb, because I would assume if you are getting a manual, you probably don't care too much these days about, fuel economy and stuff. I'm not sure, why having a lighter flywheel would tank your fuel economy. Maybe someone that's more engineering inclined can enlighten me on that, but I don't know why rev hang needs to be a thing for good fuel economy in manuals. And New says the double clutch and then rev matching and shifting up is such a pain. Yeah, it's not great, but thankfully, like I said, the Mustang doesn't really have it too much, and some of the other better manuals don't. Like Veloster N doesn't have it and stuff. So I think it's just the car makers that are making a conscious choice of, we want to offer a manual, but we don't want to take the hit with fuel economy, ratings across the board. So that's why they do that. But that's then, stuff like Veloster N, Civic Type R doesn't really have it as much. So I guess with those, they sell in small enough numbers, they're willing to take the, fuel economy average hit there with that. But it's very interesting stuff. All right, so we have Tim is asking, what's up, Matt? What do you think of the way Jeep is heading? I feel like they're going to put other companies to shame in a few years. I think they're doing really good things. I mean, obviously we all saw the Wagoneer this week, which is very impressive. And I think the thing that's most impressive about Jeep and FCA in general is I think goes back to their marketing. I mean, the fact that they've marketed the Wrangler so well, and I know that there is this cultural shift of more people wanting to get outdoors and explore and use their vehicles for that kind of stuff. But, it's just impressive just how many people are buying Wranglers and have continued to buy Wranglers. I mean, I've said in all my Wrangler reviews, basically, it's not a great daily driver, in my opinion. It's a rough ride. It's noisy. It doesn't handle well. I mean, it's better than the old Wranglers with these new ones. They're very much improved, but it's kind of amazing how many people will commute and do their daily driving in a vehicle that's, not very comfortable whenever they could have something that's way more luxurious for the same money. And they go for a Wrangler. It just goes to show, that Jeep capability and that marketing really, really is strong. And, yeah, I'm getting tongue tied. It leads to lots of good sales and, lots of people that are going for that. And same thing goes for the Dodge Charger. Same deal there. It's a, 10, 11-year-old vehicle, almost 12-year-old vehicle at this point. And look at all the people that, still buy Chargers. I mean, they've obviously continued to make it better over the years. Same with the Wrangler, and keep it fresh. But it's also the marketing of it that, helps it to stay alive. And so that's why, they don't even have to come out with new products for them to, be a successful company, but they're continuing to. And, to your question, I think, adding all that momentum of all the old models that are all already still killing it, combining that with the Wagoneers, the new Grand Cherokee, which is going to be really impressive. And that we do know that, there's going to be a new Cherokee as well coming down the road and other stuff like that. So, I mean, yeah, Jeep is out for world domination, I think, in America especially. It just speaks really well to Americans as well. And so I think that's going to take them really, really far. And I think that's part of why Peugeot is really interested. I think Jeep was the big draw for that merger, for Stellantis is, they're just... And it's also transcending beyond America. There's a huge draw in Europe now for Jeep stuff, and that's why there was talk in the past couple of weeks in the weekly update about having even a sub Renegade model for those in Europe that want a smaller Jeep. It doesn't even have to be super off-road oriented. It's just that Jeep branding and that marketing that everyone in the world seems to really be drawn to in a lot of ways. And so Jeep is doing really, really well, and I'm very impressed and honestly kind of surprised just how well they're doing. Edgar Morales, thank you so much for the super chat. I really appreciate it. I don't see a question attached, but I'll keep an eye out. If you have any questions, please ask them, and I'll try and get to them here. But thank you so much for the super chat. Doggedly Determined says, would you get a Grand Wagoneer at 105 grand or an X7 or GLS based on what we know now? It does come down to personal preference. I think the big difference between the American stuff, and this doesn't even go for the Grand Wagoneer only, it also goes for the Escalade, the Navigator, and stuff like that, is their body on frame versus, the X7 GLS are still unibody. They don't tow as much, all that kind of stuff. I think it goes back to towing for a lot of people, especially here in America. That's what you can do with the American stuff that you cannot do with the European stuff. I mean, you can tow with an X7 or a GLS, but it's a whole lot less, and it doesn't do it as well. So I think that's really the big thing. And so whenever you're, marketing these vehicles to people that, again, go outdoors, that have boats, that, want to pull around whatever they're pulling, I think that's why, yeah, they might have X7 money. They might, might not even be a question of money, but it's just the capability. And so they want to go for the top dog. And so now they have another option. They don't have to get an Escalade or a Navigator. They now can get a Grand Wagoneer. But I honestly don't know if there's going to be very much overlap, because even, looking at like the third rows, obviously I haven't been in a Grand Wagoneer yet, but the third row and the Escalade and the Navigator are both easily way bigger than an X7 or a GLS, even with their regular wheelbase versions. Then the long wheelbase versions, you get tons of space in that third row, and you get a huge trunk as well. I mean, the X7 and GLS just look tiny compared to, a long wheelbase version of those American ones. So I think, that also is a huge selling point. If you're actually doing a long road trip and you're using all three rows, you can't pack all your luggage in an X7 or a GLS. It just doesn't all fit. And it does in those long wheelbase versions of those. And so, I personally, yeah, I would probably rather have a Grand Wagoneer over an X7 or a GLS. Just because, again, you get more space, and I think you get some really cool luxury stuff that, yeah, the X7 interior is nice. So is the GLS, but it's still also, more of the same from those two companies for over the past, couple of years. Same infotainment and stuff. Whereas the Grand Wagoneer, you have these 3 screens, and the Escalade, you have this OLED curved display, and the, stereo systems that just knock your socks off, and everything's just super high tech and impressive. And so, yeah, I'm pretty obsessed. If you watched my Escalade review, I love the new Escalade. And if the Grand Wagoneer is even close to being that good, then I'll be a huge fan of it as well. They're just super cool vehicles. And I think they're worth every penny of, that 105 grand, which again is for, a fully loaded version. You will be able to get one well under 100 grand too. Jung FG2, thank you so much for the super sticker. I really appreciate it. And I see you have some comments here, but if you have any questions, definitely ask them and I will try and get to those as well. But thank you so much for the super sticker there. And Newt's asking if there's any update on the guy that was selling my old BRZ. I have not heard any updates, and I don't know. I never use Facebook Marketplace, but I'm not sure if there's a way to save listings or anything. So I haven't even checked to see if it's still in there or not. But I haven't heard anything more from him. I'm not sure if he ended up selling it or what ended up happening to the BRZ there. But yeah, it'd be cool to check out. Maybe if he still has it, a few months or something, I can go check it out once COVID has subsided a little bit here. Smile Per Mile says, "Hi Matt, I thought yesterday's weekly update was a video from several years ago because your hair was much shorter than the recent ones." Yeah, it's gonna take some getting used to. It'll be a funny jump too, because the K5, and then this coming week I'll have a Volkswagen Tiguan review that I posted. Those will be the last ones with the long hair, and then it'll jump to the review that I'll be posting the following week, which is the press car I currently have, which is the 2021 F-150, and that one will have the short hair. It'll be a funny change. But yeah, and speaking of that F-150, it's a rare version. I know a lot of the other reviewers out there have been reviewing the Power Boost versions and these like fully loaded F-150s with the EcoBoost motors and stuff. And Ford actually sent me a Velocity Blue, bright blue F-150, but it's only an XLT. So it's the second from the lowest trim. So it's almost a base model XLT, which is interesting. But it has the 5-liter V8, which there hasn't been too much coverage on that yet. So I'm excited to kind of give you guys a little bit of insight on that new V8 in the F-150, because they did add cylinder deactivation now for 2021. And then otherwise, it's a little bit more power than the old F-150 V8. But so that's been an interesting thing to drive around in. Although it's the one thing I don't like is since it's only an XLT trim, is I still have to pull out my key and slide it into the slot and twist it to start it up, which I think I have to do like once a year these days. It's so rare that I have a car that doesn't have a proximity key. And it makes me be so thankful for proximity keys, because it's such a pain having to dig in your pocket and pulling a key out. First world problems, I know, but yeah, so that is one interesting thing with this one. But yeah, so I'm excited to show that to you guys here in a few weeks. Tu Chang, thank you so much for another super chat. He says, "What car makes you want to wait for the 25-year rule?" Mine is the 98 Corolla Coupe Levin. 25-year rule, I mean, I think the ultimate one is an R34 Skyline GTR. If I had tons of money and space and all that, I would totally pick one of those up, once those meet the 25-year rule. Other than that, I don't know. I mean, I think that, it'd be cool to actually get a legit WRX STI coupe, like the GC8 versions, but those I think already are meeting that 25-year rule, or they're close to it. I don't remember exactly, but that would be another fun one. But basically, it's just the GTR. That's the main one for me, I think, that hasn't already met that. But yeah, the Corollas are cool. It's so awesome. There's that 25-year-old, because I mean, I just even saw the other day on Bring a Trailer, there was an R33 Skyline GTR that was listed on there that was really sweet, and those are also very, very cool. All the Skylines are awesome. I've only driven the R32 GTR. But yeah, the newer ones I'm sure are awesome as well. And so hopefully maybe once those all get legalized and stuff, maybe I'll have someone offer one for me to review. That would be super fun. All right. Edgar says, sorry, for some reason it didn't let me send a super chat. What's your thoughts on the EPA controversy? I think you mean. I'm glad I saw your question here. So I haven't actually looked too much into the EPA controversy that everyone's been talking about and stuff. I guess it's somehow threatening aftermarket modifications and stuff like that. But I do remember a few years back, there was also something like this that was making the rounds, and SEMA was really lobbying, I guess, hard to resist it. I'm not sure if this is the same thing as before or not. I honestly haven't looked into it too much because I'm not in the modified car world too much, so I haven't really come across it a whole lot. But I do want to look into it because I think I think that people should have the freedom to do whatever they want as long as it's not like insanely polluting. But I would, just say that, hopefully they can come to some type of agreement so that everyone can be happy. I'm firmly in the camp of live and let live. Let people do what they want to do as long as they're not hurting anyone or anything. Then go for it. So, we'll have to see. But the thing is, even in the modified car world, even if you are worried about emissions and pollution and stuff like that, and bringing that stuff down, which is a very worthy cause, how much difference is there with a straight piped exhaust or whatever the case might be, a tune on your car or something like that? I don't think it's that in the grand scheme of things. I personally don't think it's going to make that much of a difference if you force, I don't know, a few 1,000 people to not have aftermarket exhaust or something, or whatever the case might be. I just don't think, when you're talking about millions of cars on the road every single day, if that's going to make much of a dent. So it kind of seems like a waste of time, honestly, to of all the other things you can work towards to improve that situation. I think that's kind of a waste of time to go after modified cars. But again, I'm totally clueless on the subject, so that's just what I've gathered from the past few years whenever I hear that kind of stuff come up. But hopefully that does answer your question a little bit there. But I do have to do more research into that so that I am a little bit more educated on what's going on there. Other things here. So we have Omar says, is it worth buying a new gasoline car or wait for all the upcoming electric cars? That really comes down to your personal preference and your lifestyle, as far as, how well an electric car fits into your lifestyle and stuff, and your living situation, all that kind of stuff. But, I think, gas cars are still going to be around for a while. That's one thing that people, I know the media likes to make it seem like electric cars are around the corner and gas is going to go away immediately. And you see all the headlines of, not selling new gas cars by 2035 or 2030 or whatever that, number might be. But you have to remember that, that's new cars. And, as we've seen in the past, used car sales will flourish for a long time. We also saw this back in the 70s, by the way. If any of you are old enough, I wasn't, but if you're old enough or you are a fan of history, you'll know that there was the oil embargo, a crisis and stuff that happened twice, once in the early 70s and then once again in the later 70s. And you had, gas lines of people waiting to get gas and gas rationing, all that kind of stuff. And even back then, when it was just hard to get gas, there was still a huge thriving market for used vehicles. And a lot of these drag racers and stuff, even though, you had by the mid to late 70s V8s that were churning out 130 horsepower, you still had the people that were clinging onto the stuff from the late 60s, and they drag raced that stuff, into the 90s and stuff until there finally was, some legitimate muscle again and all that. So, I think that, yes, even if GM, for example, quits selling new gasoline cars by 2035, one, that's 14 years away. And two, okay, so that's brand new cars. So anyone that's a big Corvette fan that, only wants gasoline burning Corvettes, you still got 14 years to buy brand new ones. And then you have, 14 years plus all the current Corvettes that are currently out there of used inventory. I think it's going to be, a century before we run out of Corvettes to buy, if you're still wanting to cling on to that. So, and the average age of a car on the road is currently 12 years. So you have to look at that too and say, okay, well, if everyone was driving electric cars brand new in 2035 and that's all they were buying, you have to wait 12 years from then for those electric cars to be affordable enough for the average person to pick one up for under $10,000. And then they will become the majority, but they still won't even be the entirety. They'll just be the majority. So 12 years from 2035, just as an example, I mean, that puts us at 2047 for when you'll have maybe electric cars being a majority, unless there's some type of government incentive or something else that drives people into them faster. I mean, it's still going to be, 30 years before it's really a mainstream thing. And that's just my take on it. We'll have to see, like I said, lots of things can influence that one way or the other. But, if battery technology makes a breakthrough that makes it super cheap to make batteries, or, make them easier to manufacture or something, that could, bring the cost down and incentivize people. There's all kinds of variables. But anyway, long tangent, but yeah, we'll see how the whole electric thing pans out. But I think, it's not going anywhere anytime soon. To the original question, I'd say go for whatever you're most interested in now. Don't worry about future-proofing yourself too much just yet. Gabriel, thank you so much for this super chat. He says, I just bought me a 2021 Kia Stinger GT2, and it's terrible on gas. Well, congrats on buying one. Thank you for buying a Stinger. I wish more people did, because they're phenomenal cars, super underrated. And I know Kia could use the support with as far as Stingers go, because they don't sell a ton of them. And if we want to keep that kind of stuff around, buying them is the way to send the signal. So thank you for buying one. They aren't great on gas. You're correct. I can't remember my exact figure when I had one for a week, but it was not great. But yeah, so hopefully at least it's making up for it with some fun and the strong acceleration, the good sounds, and all that kind of stuff. But hopefully you're liking it. But congrats on the new car. Tu Chang, thank you so much for another super chat. He says, so if Porsche releases synthetic fuel, would EVs fail? I think, what everyone's kind of thinking right now is that it's going to be a combination. And that, even if synthetic fuel does get to a point where it's just as cheap as actual gasoline is, you still are going to have a lot of people that are going to go for the electric stuff. And so, it will kind of come down to a personal preference thing if we actually get to the point of synthetic fuel being that good and that cheap, which has dozens of hurdles before that actually happens. But if it does, then yes, I think, they could kind of be sold alongside each other. Maybe if the synthetic fuel is that good, possibly EVs could fail. I mean, it's certainly possible, but I don't think it's likely. I think EVs are going to be here to stay. And it's also it's a marketing thing. Again, it's kind of goes back to the Jeep thing and the Dodge Charger thing and stuff like that, where a lot of people, they think EVs, they see the silent thing, they see the futuristic styling on all these vehicles. And, that's like the future. That is what everyone's expecting the future to be, is silent and autonomous and all that kind of stuff. And so those things all go hand in hand. So I really think the synthetic fuel is going to be more of a lifeline for enthusiasts that, can do that, and possibly, also circumvent all the emission stuff. If you can do the synthetic fuel, you don't have to worry about the emissions. And so it could be a niche thing, and that could potentially limit, the production capabilities, which would make that more expensive. So it might be like, well, I can drive my Mustang Bullet for the next 50 years, but I'm going to have to pay, $5 a gallon, $10 a gallon, whatever it is, to fill it up. So it's going to be a little more expensive, and maybe might not make sense as a daily driver, but it'll be something that at least I can continue to drive it and not be, having to worry about, pollution laws or anything like that. So that's kind of where I see the synthetic fuel thing going. It'd be great if it just saved the gasoline engine and, we just continue on with that. But with how many billions of dollars these car companies are, pouring into the EVs, and GM going fully electric and stuff, I think it's kind of too late to turn back in that direction. And it doesn't seem like a lot of people want to stop that. Again, us enthusiasts are still the minority. I think that really for most people, EVs, they still just view that as like Tesla, which means like, rich person car that's super expensive. And the Model 3's kind of helped to bring that down. But I still think for a lot of people, it's just a cost barrier. I think a lot of people would like to have an electric car, but they just can't afford them currently. But I think that, once they get more and more affordable, a lot of people will probably switch over to that, especially if you have all the cutting edge technology, the autonomous stuff, all that kind of stuff rolling out with those electric cars. That'll further, draw people into those. But all right, so we have a Grizzly here, says, hey, Matt, I'm curious what the direction you think that Ford and the Mustang are going. Is the end of the V8 rear-wheel drive for the Mustang near? I don't think so, just because I think there is a lot of Mustang fans within Ford who are very protective of the name. And yes, I know that's kind of funny to say, considering they plastered it on an SUV that's silent, but I think that there are a lot of people that are very protective. And I even heard there was a lot of people upset within Ford when they found out about the Mach-E. So, I mean, I think it's, I think that they are very protective of it. I don't think they're going to let it go by the wayside with the, V8 rear-wheel drive thing. I think they'll keep it alive as long as they possibly can. And that's why even, like in my weekly update a couple of weeks ago where I was talking about them doing a four-door Mustang. And, if coupes get to a point where it's too hard to justify that, then I kind of see the four-door version as another lifeline because, they know that the F-150, it still has a pretty strong take rate for that V8, and the V8 F-150 has always kind of subsidized the Mustang V8 development and kind of justified, spending all this money in R&D work on, developing a V8 for those models, because if you did it just for the Mustang, it probably wouldn't make a lot of sense financially. But the F-150 subsidizes it, and that's how that whole thing kind of makes more sense for them. So I think that this is I think that the four-door version is going to be the lifeline that that gives them the freedom if they want someday, if they can get the sales numbers up high enough for the four-door Mustang, then they can kind of detach it from the F-150 and ditch the V8 and the F-150 eventually, go for just all the hybrid stuff, the electric stuff, all that. And and not have to keep it around for the Mustang's sake, and then that gives them the freedom to then make the Mustang even more of a high performing vehicle, and not have to have the limitations of having the shared engine with the F-150, and that'll help improve the performance of the V8 Mustangs in the future. And then again, you kind of have just kind of the same thing you do with the Charger. I think that's kind of, the Charger has helped to subsidize, and the trucks and stuff also subsidize the Charger. But I think that's when you have strong enough sales numbers, then you can keep that kind of stuff around. And so I think that's why, even though a lot of people might be upset about a four-door Mustang, I think that's really good news for the security of the two-door Mustang. And especially if they're going to do a V8 version and rear-wheel drive and all that kind of stuff, then that really cements that they're going to have the R&D money to invest and keep both of them around. So I think it's brilliant if that's what they're actually doing. Again, that is still just speculation, but I'm pretty confident that that's legit info that I got. And so we'll just have to wait and see on that. But I think that the future is pretty secure for the Mustang. I'm hoping so, because it'd be really a shame if they went to just all being electric and silent and not quite as exciting and stuff. So we'll see. New Media, thank you so much for the super sticker. Really appreciate it. You didn't have to do that. I really appreciate you just moderating here, but thank you for that as well. He says, honestly, if they had just called it the Mach-E, it would have been fine, but why they did throw the Mustang in there, I don't know. That's my take as well. I would have been totally fine with Mach-E. There's so many other good names too that they could have used. They could have called it the Thunderbird, the Thunderbolt, the Lightning even, because I don't know if they're ever going to do a sport truck again. I keep scratching my head at all these car companies. I don't know why they're not doing sport trucks. I know everyone's obsessed with like lifted trucks these days, but I still feel like there would be a ton of people that would buy a new Ram SRT 10 kind of deal. Obviously not with the V10 anymore, but if you did a Hellcat Ram that was actually slammed instead of jacked up to the sky, I think those would sell pretty well. I think, same thing goes if they did an F-150, with the GT500 engine, or even just, a sportier F-150 with the Mustang motor in it or something, slam it to the ground. I think that would sell super well. All that kind of stuff. But if they're not going to do that and use the Lightning name on an actual F-150 Lightning, they should have totally called it the Lightning. They have so many good names. It's different than like other car companies. They don't have very, very good names, and everything that's been good has been taken, and Ford's sitting on the trademarks for all these names, but they're not using any of them. I think it's a huge missed opportunity. And yeah, it just seems like a little bit of a lack of creativity, honestly, with the naming for that kind of stuff. I am happy about the Maverick name. Yeah, we have leaker underminer of games is talking about the Maverick. And yeah, those spy shots that leaked out. I don't know. Let me know in the comments. I'll see if I can catch all the comments here as far as what you guys think of those Maverick spy pictures if you saw them. I don't know about that front end. Maybe, you know, it needs a few more pieces in the headlights there, and that's pre-production. But that Maverick does not look good in the front end to me. I don't know if it's just me or not, but I saw those spy pictures and I was like, oof, I don't know. Maybe it'll grow on me or something, but wasn't in love with the way that thing looked. All right. So, and Newt Media says diaper money. I appreciate it. Thanks for the super chat again. And Tu Chang, thank you so much for another super chat. He says, last one because, well, you understand. Totally understand. I appreciate the super chats already. He said, would it make sense for Toyota to build a rear-wheel drive sports sedan? Think BRZ 86, but with Mazda. Budget Lexus IS. That would be a really cool idea. I would love if they did that. I honestly think we'll have to see how much Mazda pushes up market, but I think Mazda might make something like that. You know, I think that's kind of what it's going to be, because Mazda's getting a version of that platform for their new Mazda 6. And I doubt they'll price a Mazda 6 as expensive as a Lexus IS. I could be wrong, but, you know, I think that might be a possible solution. But it would be really cool if Toyota did some type of, four-door thing. I'm not sure, you know, they have, you know, names in the heritage books they could, use. But I think it'd be really cool if they did something like that. I'm not sure if they're going to. I think, you know, it sounds like if they're going to bring stuff back, it would be MR2, Celica, stuff like that. But it would be cool to do a little rear-wheel drive sports sedan, and possibly, you know, maybe, you know, the whole thing with competition, you know, everyone's seeing how well the Dodge Charger sells, and now Ford's going to join in with the Mustang sedan, possibly. Maybe that could incentivize Toyota to be like, hey, maybe there's a market here if we do, you know, this twin turbo inline six that they're talking about for those vehicles, and do a performance version of it that isn't, you know, luxurious. That maybe could make sense. We'll see. It could be exciting times here in the mid 2020s with all that stuff. Noel, thank you so much for the super chat. He says, isn't Toyota supposed to build a small, capable SUV similar to Renegade and Bronco Sport? I remember something about a Huntsville plant building it. Yes, they are partnering. Toyota and Mazda are partnering on something there. And I thought that it possibly might have been a little SUV, but I also thought I heard that it was going to be the, I thought it was maybe that's where they're going to build that Corolla Cross that like was revealed for the rest of the world, but then Toyota didn't say anything about it for us. I thought it might have been Corolla Cross. I could be wrong. So maybe that's it. Of course, they also do have, their, what is it called? The C, I'm drawing a blank on it. Not the HRV, but, Toyota's version of that. Anyway, that vehicle, maybe a new version of that they could do. So we'll have to see. But I'm not sure, I'm thinking they're trying to, because there was also, Toyota did the Pro, not the Pro 4X, that's Nissan, but they had some type of concept that was boxy and rugged and stuff. And there was talks of them doing that as well. I haven't heard anything about that in over a year probably. But there's all kinds of stuff going on at Toyota. We'll see what actually, ends up coming into production. But they got several good possibilities out there. So we'll see, what they end up coming up with. But I know it was called the Cruise or something. It wasn't the FJ Cruiser, but it was something like that. Anyway, they got all kinds of stuff going on, I think. We'll see what ends up happening. Tu Chang says Toyota Cressida. Yeah, that'd be great. Just do that. For names, I think a lot of people would welcome that stuff. CHR, thank you, Newt Media. That's the Toyota I was blanking on. All the alphabet soup names are getting harder to remember. All right, other things here. Noel says they had that concept that came out, the small 4x4. And Sam's saying, wasn't there something that Subaru and Toyota were working on for a hot hatch? I talked about that in a couple weekly updates ago, and that's still just speculation as of right now. We do know that Subaru and Toyota obviously have worked on the BRZ and the 86, and they're also doing an electric SUV together. It's going to be like RAV4 and Forester sized. There was rumors about them working on a hot hatch, but supposedly it'd be different than the GR hot hatch that's coming here for the States, which would probably be a GR Corolla. All kinds of stuff going on at Toyota. I don't know what they're going to end up coming out with here, but should be a busy few years for them. I'm still waiting to even just hear about the new 86. We still have not, that has not been revealed. It's been months now since the BRZ's been out, and totally silent from Toyota, and I'm guessing they'll start production the same time around, this fall, I think is when they're supposed to be available. So that's got to be, I'm surprised they haven't started to tease that yet, but that's got to be right around the corner as well. So Edwin says, any thoughts on the LaFerrari successor? I saw there were some spy shots of that running around in the past couple of weeks as well. I think, I can't remember much of what I read about it, but I think, they're saying it's going to basically be like the SF90 Stradales setup, but just even more power, over 1,000 horsepower and stuff, which would be awesome. I love Ferraris. Basically everything they make, I'm usually very impressed with and immediately want it. And so I'm guessing that'll be the same case here for that as well. So yeah, I'm excited to see what they do with that. So yes, man, yes says best first car for under $3,000. So at that price point, yeah, you're going to be fairly limited, obviously. I think really the go-to thing, if you're looking for something, in that price range, your chances are you want something reliable. And so I would recommend, you can't go wrong with an older Honda or Toyota. Even if you're getting one that's older than an equivalent competitor, like even if you have to go another 5 years older for the Honda or the Toyota versus, a newer Chevy or something you can also get for $3,000, I think you're still better off having the older Honda or Toyota at that price point, because those things will be reliable. They'll get you where you need to go and stuff and be a lot of fun. And if you're looking for something that's a little bit of an enthusiast model, there are still plenty of NA Miatas you can pick up, I think, for around $3,000. And they'll be rough around the edges at $3,000 probably. But if you're not scared of a project, that could be fun. And you'd be a great choice as well. But yeah, so good luck in your car search. Hopefully you find something you enjoy. Kaz Nino says, Matt, what do you think about car companies selling brand new old body style cars with updated electronics and features? I think that'd be a super cool idea. I'd love to, see them do something like that. And I think there was, I'm trying to remember. There was the little electric vehicle, that Ace. I think it's called the Ace something. But that looks kind of retro, but still is, a modern electric thing. But as far as like big car companies doing that, I think it'd be really cool. It's just, I think the biggest problem is with crumple zones and stuff like that for modern safety. Trying to do the same proportions and stuff is really hard because, those old like classic muscle cars, for example, if you're going to put in a modern bumper beam, then you lose engine bay space, and, it makes it a little bit trickier. And, a lot of those vehicles are also really small. So, crash testing that, make that stuff strong enough for crash testing is going to be kind of a challenge. And, trying to find spaces for, side curtain airbags and mounting all that kind of stuff. If you're actually going to modernize them thoroughly like that, it's pretty tough to do. So it'd be very cool. I wish that somebody would do so. I know there's like Singer, which kind of modernizes 911s and stuff, but if there was someone who could really like thoroughly modernize a vehicle, that'd be super cool. If you could actually like put airbags in it, put, not just resto mod stuff, but like actually make it like as safe as a modern car and as reliable and have all the electronics and all that kind of stuff, would be very, very cool. We'll see. Maybe that, someday if people are more nostalgic about, the old stuff, maybe that's something that'll happen. So Ryan says, why does the dealership model still exist? That is kind of a good question. As more and more companies are kind of moving away from dealerships and kind of following Tesla's lead, I kind of, wonder the same thing as far as where dealerships fit. And I think that, like there was just talk in the past week or two about Volvo and how all their EVs will be sold online only. And the purpose of the dealership will be to service the vehicle, and they'll maybe have one person there to like help you order online if you're struggling with that, or if you have questions about the model or something, they can still kind of guide you. And I think that's really the biggest value of dealerships, aside from obviously servicing, is that dealerships still can kind of guide people. Because again, whenever we're discussing between all of us enthusiasts, we watch car reviews, we do our own research, we're very knowledgeable about cars in general, so we don't need that guidance. But the overwhelming majority of people still, they don't know what they're looking for. They don't know what they want. They don't know what they should expect out of a car, especially if it's someone who doesn't buy a car every few years. There's a whole lot of questions, and a lot of people really still need that guidance. And so I think that's where dealerships still are very valuable in helping people kind of figure out what they want, because there still are a lot of people that they just don't they either don't want to do the legwork of doing all the research, or they just don't know where to start. And so they just kind of go into it cluelessly. And so I think that, the dealerships really help those type of people. But when you see, Carvana and Vroom and all those kind of really growing in popularity, I think that could be the future. But there still are going to be a lot of people that want to test drive something. And I know that you can return within 7 days with Carvana and stuff like that, but it still is like a huge hassle to do all the paperwork of buying a car and then, have it show up. And then if you hate it after 7 days, having to like waste all that time with all that paperwork and all the hoops you have to then jump through to get refunds and all that kind of stuff, cancel the loan, whatever the case might be. It's a whole headache, which I think is why, the whole like you can return it in 7 days thing is more so a marketing thing than it is an actual practical thing, is they're hoping that you're just like, oh, well, this is good enough. And you just settle because you don't want to go through the whole process again. And so I think that's kind of the one hurdle, though, is there's people that still want to test drive, that still, don't want to sign on the dotted line until they know without a shadow of a doubt they want that car. And so I think the dealerships are still going to kind of have that value. Maybe they'll get pushed out of existence by the manufacturers, but there are some very strong dealer associations that, have a lot of money to lobby to, keep dealerships around and stuff. And that's why there's all those legal battles with Tesla a few years back, as far as where they can even sell cars in, because, these dealerships are not going to go down without a fight. And so we'll see how that all plays out. But the showroom aspect is nice, being able to sit and stuff without having to have it delivered to you and stuff. And as far as Ken's also asking, as far as an actual experience with Carvana, I don't know anyone that's bought a car from Carvana, but I do know my father-in-law actually sold his car to Carvana. That was extremely easy. He just put in like his mileage and what he had. And I don't think they even took pictures of it. I think Carvana basically just bought it sight unseen and showed up with a check and a flatbed truck and said, here's your check. He said, here's the keys. They took it away, and that was the end of it. So, I mean, it's not a very good business model if you're buying all your cars sight unseen. Carvana has been losing a good bit of money as well. I don't think they're profitable yet, but, maybe if they iron out all the kinks and stuff, that'll be something they can actually, have that be the future like they're claiming someday. Noel says that there was a nightmare with TFL. I haven't watched those videos. I've been wanting to watch them about them buying on Vroom, but yeah, that's crazy. Anyway, Kyle, thank you so much for the super chat. He says, hey, Matt, how long do you think it will take for car shows to start up again? I guess you're meaning like the convention center, like car shows and stuff like that. I think, once the vaccination stuff is more widespread and once, it's kind of back to a more normal world, I think that's when they'll go back to that. But car shows, even before COVID, were really struggling. Car companies were pulling out even before, all that stuff went down. So it's going to be an uphill battle. I think there still are a lot of people that are going to want them. And, for example, the Pittsburgh one isn't really sponsored by the manufacturers. It's all a dealer thing because it just generates them a bunch of leads, basically. And so, as far as dealer-sponsored car shows, and stuff like that, I think that's still going to happen for a while. But as far as the big international car shows and stuff, I think they'll still try and do them. We'll see how the new Detroit format does, of them having everything like outdoors and stuff. And there still is, a lot of people that like going to like the LA Auto Show and stuff like that. I think, it just, I don't know how many reveals will be at those shows, but I think they will have those shows, even those large ones again. We'll just have to see how many of those reveals again show up at those car shows. But I'm guessing, we'll have to see how things play out here in America and, what, if things actually go according to all the plans and stuff. But I'm hoping that, we're back to a relatively normal, somewhat normal world by the summer. As long as there aren't any unforeseen hurdles that pop up, I'm hoping that this fall car show season can be, back to normal. But who knows? Like we've seen this past year, and everything can change at the drop of a hat. If there's a new COVID variant that mutates or something, we might go straight back into lockdown and forget about doing anything this year. But hopefully, fingers crossed, things all go well, and we'll be back to normal pretty soon. But thank you again for the super chat. Jung FG2, thank you so much for another super sticker. I really appreciate it. And I will keep an eye out for any other questions that you have too. Bike Buddha 01 says, what are you feeling on Toyota's hate crime against the United States? Not giving us the GR Yaris. Oh yeah, that's a hate crime. So yeah, as far as the GR Yaris, it is a bummer that they have not brought it to the States. I think we'll see how much of that comes over with the GR Corolla. I think, you know, there's been the two different rumors of, it's either going to be just front wheel drive, but use the GR Yaris motor, or others are saying it's going to be all wheel drive, use the GR Yaris all wheel drive system and stuff. If they do truly bring that awesome all wheel drive system and the motor over, then I don't think there's going to be that many people that are too upset about that. But I mean, obviously it's going to be a much bigger vehicle. It's going to be heavier, not nearly as good as the GR Yaris most likely, but I think that it's such a small niche. There's so many people that are excited about the GR Yaris here in the States, but how many of them would actually go out and buy one? I would like to think a lot of them would, but I also don't know because, it's one of those things. Everyone talks about the cars they would buy, but then who actually goes out and buys them brand new? Everyone wants to buy them 5 years whenever they're, more affordable used cars. But if people aren't buying them brand new, it just makes it tough to justify for the car companies. But Kyle, thank you so much for another super chat. He says, one more question. Would you ever build a car online and then submit it to a dealer to order, or just buy one on the lot? So I've actually done both. I personally ordered the Mustang Bullet online. Well, I guess I didn't order it online per se. I knew everything I wanted online, and then I just called it into my dealer and told them exactly what I wanted, and they ordered it through their system. But I never actually went to the dealership to order that car because it was 4 hours away. So I just called it in, they placed the order, and then I followed it all online, and it got delivered, and that was it. But yeah, so I mean, personally, I have no complaints with that. I think also, it just comes down to what your, I guess, what it is with your whole buying situation. Like for me, for my example, the Mustang Bullet, I already knew what it was like to drive a Mustang GT. I knew the Bullet was just going to be a better version of that. So I didn't need to test drive the Bullet. I didn't test drive it before I bought it. I walked in, was like, wow, it's the most amazing thing ever, signed on the line, drove away, and that was the end of it. And I know for a lot of people, they don't do that though. So, if you are someone who wants to test drive stuff, I think, buying on the lot makes a lot of sense. And if it's a car you haven't driven before and you need to experience it first, obviously that of course makes sense with that. So it just comes down. But some people, they know what they want, and, they watch reviews and they get a good sense of what it's like from that. And they're like, yep, I'm good. And they don't have to, do any kind of test driving or checking it out on the lot. They just are fine ordering online, having it dropped off in their driveway. And honestly, this is something, if you're a normal person who doesn't have boatloads of money, this is something that's normal. But whenever you're looking at like rich people that are buying supercars, like most supercar dealers, especially when you're buying a brand new supercar, they don't let you test drive it 100%. Like, I mean, most of those cars, even to place the order, you have to either pay, have your financing up front, put down a massive down payment, or do something like that. But I mean, most of my friends that I know that have supercars, they never drove them before they bought them. They literally, were waiting in line for it or whatever. They knew it was going to be amazing because it's a supercar. It's not going to be bad. And, they just placed the money, wired the money, whatever, had it dropped off in their driveway. The dealership, a lot of times just dropped it off and delivered it right there. Sometimes, they went to the dealer, and then, they went to the dealer, which was far away, and then they had it shipped to their house after that. But they still didn't even drive it at that point. They waited until it was at their house until they drove it. But yeah, so I mean, for supercar owners, this isn't anything new. They've been buying online, buying overseas, buying wherever, having it shipped straight to their door, and figuring it out after that. But obviously, that's a much different case with supercars and stuff. Tu Chang, thank you so much for another super chat. He says, question from girlfriend. Tu is really a computer nerd, but he watches you and other car channels to clear his head. What do you watch to get away from cars? So Beth keeps me grounded with so I don't go too far down the car rabbit hole, I guess. So, we watch a lot of different TV shows, Netflix stuff, movies, all that kind of stuff. There's not any specific stuff. I mean, it's just, we have a ton of shows on the DVR that we go through every week, mostly comedy stuff, things like that. We've been really enjoying Mr. Mayor recently. Superstore is always one that we love watching. And a few others, but yeah, mostly just watching that kind of stuff. Honestly, I don't watch much YouTube because I don't have time. I'm either doing my own YouTube stuff, or, we're watching stuff on the actual TV and all that. So my watch later playlist on YouTube is super long. It's like almost 400 videos, I think, on my watch later playlist that I want to watch someday, but haven't had a chance to yet. And I probably never will. But yeah, and that's all car stuff for the most part. It's very rare that I watch a YouTube video that's not car related. But yeah, I totally get the whole car nerd thing, needing to clear your head and stuff. It's kind of refreshing to, do non-car stuff every once in a while. Fastline says, you're the reason why I want a Type R. The Type R video you did, I guess you really liked it. I appreciate that. That was a really fun car. And I was actually, there was someone who was just messaging me this past week on the Facebook page asking about car advice. I often answer a lot of questions on the Facebook page, people that are trying to figure out what kind of car they want to buy and stuff. And someone was considering a Type R, and I was like, yeah, Type R you really can't go wrong with those. They're amazing cars. I just wish they had more sound. That's one thing. I still think I like the Veloster N slightly better because the sound in the Veloster N is just so much more fun. But Type R is really solid, and I'm hoping that this next generation version, they fix the sound thing a little bit and make it a little bit better sounding with the exhaust and stuff. So we have Rise says, hey, Matt, do you feel we should avoid the 2022 BRZ the same way the 2013 FRS BRZ is to be avoided due to issues being a brand new model? Well, honestly, I mean, maybe I've been out of the loop for a while, but I didn't think that 2013 BRZs and FRSs had any issues. I know that there's been some that have had, I think that they've had like a valve issue over 100,000 miles or some type of like rod issue or something. I can't remember exactly, but I know it's anecdotal evidence, but my 2013 BRZ I just refound again, thanks to New Media a few weeks ago, that had 140,000 miles. And according to the Carfax, there was no engine work done on that car. So unless someone fixed it, off the books, I think that car seems to be totally fine with 140,000 miles. My friend that actually has the FRS, that got his the same time I got my BRZ, he still has his. Now, he doesn't drive it daily anymore, so I think his has like 65,000 miles or something on it. But his has been totally fine. I think he said it might be starting to slowly consume a tiny bit of oil, but I think it's not something that he's too concerned about just yet. But I don't know if I've heard of too many big issues with those, but I think that it doesn't hurt to wait for the second model year for anything. But I think that you'll probably be okay. I wouldn't worry too much about it because, with the new BRZ, it's an evolution of the old engine. It's not completely new and different. So I'm hoping that they just kind of built on the success of the previous one and they figured out what's reliable, what they should and shouldn't do. And then, just kind of further enhance that with this new evolution of it. So I don't think hopefully there'll be too many issues, but I know personally, if I was in the position to buy another BRZ, I wouldn't wait. Even if I was planning on keeping it forever, just because I'm impatient. I don't want to wait for a year while everyone else has fun with them. I just want to go for it. And that's why you have a warranty as well, right? You have a warranty so that if something goes wrong in those first 5 years in the powertrain, you're okay. And beyond that, obviously you're on your own. But, later on, it's not that big of a deal, I think, personally. But anyway, all comes down to different preferences. But BT Aurora, thank you so much for a super chat. He says, love your show. Is Miata overrated compared to other rear-wheel drive and all-wheel drive sports cars? I don't think it is. I think that the Miata is really fun. It's a vehicle that you have to experience to truly appreciate it. And I think a lot of people just write it off. I honestly think the Miata is underrated because there's just so many people that won't even give it a look because there's still people who think it's like a girl car or that it's, just not muscly enough and it's not fast enough in a straight line, which isn't the case. I mean, it's really quick now, especially these ND2s. I mean, they are strong cars. And if I needed a convertible vehicle, if I could justify having a convertible, that would be towards the top of my list. It would be that or an F-Type I would probably end up buying. I love the Miatas. Compared to other rear-wheel drive and all-wheel drive stuff, I mean, yeah, it comes down to, what you're looking for. If you're looking for, something like a WRX, obviously a Miata is probably not going to do it for you. And same thing goes, if you're looking for the fastest thing for $30,000, yes, a Miata is not going to be your car. You can get an EcoBoost Mustang or something like that. There are obviously, the Miata is not the best horsepower per dollar by any means. It's not going to be the fastest. It's not going to even, it's all about the handling of the Miata and the experience. And if you're someone who values the experience and you value driving a slower car fast instead of a fast car slow, I think it's a lot of fun. And so yeah, I love the Miatas. I don't think they're overrated at all, and I honestly wish more people would buy them. I was actually put a smile on my face today because I was driving around and I saw someone driving with their top down in an ND Soul Red Miata. It was great to see someone enjoying that car on a nice day today here. But yeah, I love the Miatas. All right, other questions here. Grizzly says, sorry to be annoying, Matt, but what would you rather have, four-door Wrangler or four-door Bronco? I haven't driven the Bronco yet, so I really can't say. It's really going to have to come down to how the Bronco drives. If it has any more refinement or any better handling than the Wrangler, then yeah, I would probably go for the Bronco. But Wranglers are cool. It's just not my thing. Bronco is not really my thing either because I'm just not into the off-road thing, so it'd be totally wasted on me. But between the two, I'd probably go Bronco just because it's new and kind of, the it car this summer most likely. And I think that's, also I enjoy having something that's new and fresh and different. And so I think I'd probably go for the Bronco for that reason as well. So Fabrice says, how are you with other YouTubers like That Dude in Blue and TJ Hunt? So, I mean, yeah, they're still, I don't really talk to them very much. I know That Dude in Blue, we did bump into each other on a couple press trips here in the past few years. And it's been always great catching up with him and seeing, how he's doing and stuff and talking cars and all that. So it was great to bump into him. I haven't seen TJ Hunt in a long, long time. But yeah, he's doing his thing. I'm glad to see all the success that he has. And but yeah, I haven't really talked to him in years either. But we're all busy and stuff, and we're really also kind of in different genres as far as the car scene and the automotive world stuff goes. So they kind of are off in the build scenes, and I'm kind of still just doing the car review thing and just kind of sticking to the more conventional stuff with all the other automotive journalists and stuff like that. But yeah, great to see them doing so well. And they both are super nice guys. Actually, I did see TJ Hunt about a year and a half ago now at SEMA 2019. It was super cool to run into him. And it was really exciting, just both of us, because we hadn't seen each other in so long. It was really, really cool. So that was a lot of fun to see him. He's still a super nice guy. From the little bit that I, got to hang out with him there, it was really cool. So Robert says, hey Matt, what's your recommendation for a great starter car for a 16-year-old? I think really my go-to car I always recommend for new drivers that are enthusiasts, if you're willing to learn manual, I think that the previous generation Civic Si is still probably my favorite car to recommend to a first-time enthusiast. So I'm talking anything up until, I believe, the 2015, 2016 is the last model year, I think, for that generation Si. Because you have a screaming, 8,000 RPM redline, four-cylinder. It sounds so good. The manual transmission in those is fantastic. There's no rev hang whatsoever, so it's very easy to, drive it like a normal manual. And I still definitely prefer that generation Si over the new ones. The new ones are, nicer, more comfortable, better daily drivers. But I still love that previous generation Civic Si. So if you can afford one of those, that would be my recommendation. It's front-wheel drive too, so it's still very easy to handle. It's still a very safe vehicle, very comfortable, all at the same time. That is one of my favorite cars. If I was shopping for anything in that kind of, I'd say $8,000 to $15,000 price range, and I wanted something that was a lot of fun with a really good manual, Civic Si all day, every day, of that, old generation. I can't remember the generation name for that one, but not the current generation, the one before that. And Fabrice says, thank you for answering my question. You introduced me to car YouTube back when you were a Super Deluxe fan. Well, thank you for all the years of support. I really appreciate it. I know so many people that have said the same kind of thing, that that the BRZ videos kind of got them into cars a little bit, and the BRZ in general kind of got them into cars a little bit, and this channel kind of got them into following the car world and stuff like that. And it's awesome. It's been a lot of fun covering it. It's been a long time too. I was just thinking back how it's been legitimately, I've been doing car reviews now for 8 years, which seems like an eternity, especially with all these new channels that have been popping up, every year or two. There's all these new channels. And it's like, man, I've been doing this for a really long time. I'm so grateful I've been able to do it for so long. I know that probably works against me a little bit as well, because I'm, probably the least fresh channel out there. It's a very old hat compared to all these new and exciting other channels that do car reviews, admittedly, much better than I do, with much better production values and more entertaining hosts and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I'm very grateful I've been able to do this for so long. And even YouTube in general, I've been just uploading videos now it's been like almost like 13 years. I've been a YouTube partner for 10 years now. So it's crazy, crazy stuff. And I really appreciate all of you who've been there to support me all these years. It's been a really fun journey here. And hopefully it doesn't end for a long time. But BT Aurora, thank you so much for their super chat. He says, I have a 2015 Gen 9 SI, thinking of what's next. Well, I don't know. I mean, obviously whatever you're looking at, it totally comes down to whatever your needs are and what you're looking for. But I would hang on to that car. Even if you are, wanting to get rid of it or something, if you can possibly afford to hang on to it, I think that's going to be a future classic if it's like that last version of that generation before the turbochargers came in. I can see those things in 10 years or so going for big money on Bring a Trailer. I could be wrong, but same thing you're seeing. Everyone is obsessed with the Integra Type Rs and stuff. Those are going for, I think one actually cracked 6 figures. It was like a mid condition, like no miles one, but still, I think that there's a good solid future for those SIs as far as collectibles go, because they are just so good. But Queasy, thank you so much for the super chat. He says, hey Matt, coming from a 4.0 Mustang, looking at either a 16 Accord Coupe V6 or 16 Civic Coupe, which would you say is more fun? Both are fantastic. I think it also comes down to, I'm guessing with the Civic, you're talking about an SI, because a non-SI Civic isn't going to be quite as much fun. The Accord Coupe V6 is fantastic, though. I really enjoyed the ones that I've reviewed so far. And I have someone that I think had the 17, the last year was the 17 of that Accord Coupe V6 with a manual. I'm hoping to be able to review that here maybe later this year. But they're fantastic cars. They're a lot of fun. I think that's another vehicle that's very underrated. It was underrated at the time. No one really cared about them back when they were new, unfortunately. And they have a cult following, but there's still a lot of people that kind of overlook them. And they're fantastic vehicles. So I think, obviously, coming from your Mustang, it's going to be a totally different driving dynamic with going from rear-wheel drive to front-wheel drive. But you can't go wrong with either one. If you're going for the SI Civic, those are a blast. I think that they do, if you enjoy, well, I mean, you have your, strong V6 there in your Mustang, but if you're looking for a high revving engine, obviously the Civic has a higher red line with the SI version of that generation. So that I think is a little bit more fun to ring out, but then you just have the strength of that Accord Coupe V6, which also is a really nice, powertrain in that. I think either one is a really good choice. I'm sorry, I'm not much help, but they're both, you can't really go wrong with either one. I think also if you want a little more space and comfort, the Accord's going to be the better choice too. But I think personally, if it were me, the Civic might be just a tiny bit more fun for the SI of that generation. So I'd probably go for that. But you can't go wrong with the Accord Coupe V6 either. Although the Accord is also going to use a little bit more gas. So if you're driving it a lot, and fuel economy is a concern for you, the Civic might be a better choice for that too. But just another thing to kind of consider there. But thank you again for the super chat. Joe says, hi, Matt. I have a feeling that Toyota are being tight-lipped about the GR86 until the attention on the GR Yaris starts to fade in non-US markets. So frustrating. Maybe, I think that the GR Yaris has kind of had its, day in the sun already. There's already been all the reviews have been posted. Everyone's already kind of been drooling over it for, a good while now. So I think they should be revealing it relatively soon. Maybe they're waiting for actual spring to hit here, because it's like, hey, spring, sports cars, and everyone's kind of thinking about that kind of stuff once it gets warm. So maybe that's part of it too. I have no clue, but obviously, Subaru didn't have that same concern because they're like, here's the new BRZ. So I don't know. But yeah, very interesting stuff. And so another question here. Brian says, do you think the future Gen Mustang will have all-wheel drive? Seems pretty likely. There was there's been lots of rumors of an all-wheel drive Mustang coming, and even Ford themselves in interviews with other, outlets has been saying like, well, they do offer it in the Challenger, so maybe, we like to compete, and they kind of dance around it. I think it's pretty certain they will do all-wheel drive. And there was also a Mustang that was spied running around in Michigan that had a different rear brake setup, which I guess typically is something that they run on all-wheel drive models as far as the design layout. And so there's something going on there, unless it's just for the next generation Mustang. They're working on the brakes for that. But, typically it sounds like that could be something that, leads them to go towards all-wheel drive. I think it makes a lot of sense, especially, again, like I was talking about earlier, if you're trying to find ways to keep the Mustang around and subsidize, parts on it and stuff. I think that, if you can bump the numbers up by offering all-wheel drive, and you can open it up to everyone in those snowbelt states, that could keep it around a little bit longer as well and justify that two-door version. And so I think it's pretty likely they'll do all-wheel drive. I think it'll probably, pay for itself and be something that'll be worth doing for them. So we have Snarkle says, why aren't more automakers giving you exciting new vehicles that others with lesser views are getting, like ADX getting invited to the new 400Z and T-Rex reveals? So yeah, the whole like who gets invited to what thing is still kind of a mystery that I think only the manufacturers really know. Now, as far as using ADX as an example, I mean, he gets really good views. I think most of his stuff probably gets much better views than my stuff does, honestly. And his videos are fantastic. He does a really good job. He's a super cool guy. I got to hang out with him on the 2020 Corvette launch back last year. That was like the second to last event I did before the world shut down. It was so much fun hanging out with him. He's a really cool guy. But as far as, why some things I don't get invited to, I'm not sure. I mean, there are some things that I also turn down invites for sometimes, but that's mostly the more mundane stuff that I know isn't going to do really well on the channel. And so, if I don't think it's going to be a grand slam, then I'm not flying across the country for it. That's kind of my take, especially now that I'm going to be a dad here next month. I'm not going to want to leave, my little newborn baby as much. And so I'm going to be even more picky about the press trips that I go on. So, like, for example, Jeep last year invited me to the Gladiator, Gladiator Mojave. And I skipped that one. And like, there was like Wrangler Diesel I got invited to. I skipped that one as well, because I know that like those videos, even whenever I waited and finally got them as press vehicles, they got like no views. And that's exactly why I didn't fly across the country for it, because it's just not worth it whenever none of you are going to watch it. And I don't blame you if you're not interested in Wranglers and stuff. Obviously, this channel is more about performance cars, so I don't, it makes sense that those get low views on my channel. But so there are some of those and I've actually talked to some of the PR reps where they do say they want to try and, they want to invite me on the right stuff. And like with FCA, for example, they say that's why they don't invite me on a lot of the truck stuff, because I don't do a ton of truck vehicles. That's not my thing. And so, but the second that, a Hellcat Charger gets revealed, they invite me right away. I go on that launch, it gets hundreds of thousands of views, and, it's all a grand slam. And so I think it's just kind of being a little more picky. But as far as why Nissan hasn't, didn't invite me to the 400Z little reveal thing and stuff like that, I'm not sure. As far as the T-Rex, I will actually have a T-Rex next week, so I will finally be able to review that. But I think that kind of fell in the truck category for FCA, so that kind of, they figured I wouldn't be interested in that, even though it is, a Hellcat powered thing. But I think a lot of you will hopefully enjoy the T-Rex video. Hopefully that gets decent views. But yeah, there are still some companies that just, it is a little frustrating where I'm like, why wasn't I invited? Like Volkswagen, the Golf R, that video would have done really great. I know some others went to that. I'm currently not traveling still because of COVID anyway. So anything that I'm getting invited to, I would, turned down currently, but hopefully, once I'm vaccinated and everything here this summer, I'll be able to go on press trips again whenever they make sense. And so yeah, it's sometimes it just comes out of luck of the draw as well. Like I know I got invited on the 2020 Corvette launch, and there was some other people that were wondering why they didn't get invited, and I'm like, I don't know, like channels bigger than mine that didn't get invited for the Corvette, and I did. So there, it's kind of a give and take thing. Sometimes I'm like, I'm the one that's sitting at home like, oh man, I would have loved to go on that. And then there's other times where I'm like, I'm the one that's going on this stuff and other people aren't. And so, it really comes down to the manufacturers. I don't know how they decide who gets invited to what. But it's kind of hit or miss, because there's sometimes where a manufacturer will like be inviting me to stuff and then they don't, and then they do again. And it's all kind of a mystery to me. So I wish I knew, but there's a little bit of behind the scenes insight there for you on that. But yeah. So we have R4 Robin says, "Hey Matt, if you had a tight budget of 25 grand for a brand new car, would you consider a Forte GT?" 100%. I think that still is, like I said in the title of the video, it's one of the best values in that segment. I love the Forte GT. It's a great little car. You get so many luxury features too, especially if you're going for the automatic transmission version. 25 grand, you walk away with heated and cooled seats, wireless charging pad, touchscreen, smartphone integration, all kinds of nice stuff in that vehicle, stuff that, you don't even get in a lot of higher end stuff, unless you pay way more money, and you still get really good performance of the Forte GT. Yes, it's not the most horsepower. Yes, it doesn't have a limited slip differential. But unless you're autocrossing it every weekend, I don't think it's that big of a deal. And I think, spending 25 grand on a Forte GT is a better buy than spending 30 grand on a, Volkswagen Jetta GLI or something like that. I think the Forte GT is great. 100% would consider one if you're looking for something fun. I also will mention, I'm not sure how much you're willing to travel, but if you're open to Korean performance stuff, I have seen some Veloster N's dipping down right around 25 grand used. And a Veloster N is a riot. I don't know if that's on your radar or something you're interested in, but if you are considering it, I can't recommend the Veloster N enough to people. They're fantastic cars. And even my future brother-in-law has a Veloster Turbo, and he loves that as well. So that's another solid choice too. But Forte GT, if you need 4 real doors, solid choice there too. And I think they actually look really good too. All right. So Chess Knight says, "Why have trucks increased in price to 50 to 60 grand?" Yeah, I don't know. It's kind of crazy how trucks are ballooning in prices. And I think part of why is because they can. There's been this real popularity with like these just luxury trucks, which really wasn't a thing. Trucks used to be a work vehicle and a utilitarian thing. And truck buyers usually didn't care about having, all the, toys and gadgets and stuff. Now they do. So I think, they're adding that stuff because they know that truck buyers expect a lot of that stuff, but it still just seems crazy that they're ballooning in price so much. It's kind of wild. Obviously, like most other new cars, there is also the factor of, people just needing to have, more technology, but also there's, the safety, the emissions, all those types of things that drive up the prices of cars these days. So there's some of that, but yeah, it's kind of crazy. I actually had sticker shock this week whenever I looked at the sticker price for this F-150 that I have as a press vehicle currently. It's an XLT trim, so it's the second from the lowest trim, and it has a bunch of options on it. It has the V8, and it's a mid-level XLT, so it has some option packages on it and stuff, but it's still for like a cloth seat, like no push button start, no keyless access F-150. This one, as tested, is like $58,000. My jaw almost dropped to the floor. I'm like, I have to pull a key out of my pocket and like use an old school twist key, and I have to sit in a cloth seat, and I'm paying $58,000 for that. I mean, that was like this truck is super bizarre with the way it's the way they configured it on this one for the press fleet, because like if you're paying 58 grand, you get cloth seats, you did your configuration wrong. Like it's kind of wild that Ford even allows you to have that kind of a configuration for the F-150s. But yeah, I don't know. It's kind of wild how these trucks are, going up in price. But yeah, you'll hear me rant about that in my F-150 review if you watch it. But yeah, Snarkle says the most simple answer: people are willing to buy them. That is 100%. Yeah, that is all you need to know right there. If people quit buying them, then it wouldn't be the case. But they keep on selling them. I think the super enormous long finance rates, everyone's financing their trucks for 10 years and stuff now, basically. That certainly helps to keep those payments affordable. That's all people think about is that monthly payment. And then that also, allows those prices to balloon a little bit more as well. But yeah, very, very interesting there with all that. That washer nerd says, how do you get your cameras to be so stable while driving a car? I tried doing a review and I had to scrap the footage due to such shaky footage. So for me, it's just a combination of using a solid camera mount. So I do have on my windshield, how I set up my reviews. I have my suction cup mount on the windshield, and I use a dual suction cup mount, so it's on there a little bit more stable. And I actually, in the description of every video, I have an Amazon link to all the camera gear that I use. And you can click that and see all the products that I use if you're curious about all the actual stuff I have. But so that helps give it some stability. I also, whenever I buy my cameras, I make sure it's a camera that has very good image stabilization. And when I look for image stabilization, I don't look for just good stabilization, but I look for kind of a more floaty stabilization, if that makes sense. So there are some others where and this is one thing I really love about the Sony cameras. And right now I have a Panasonic G85, and it kind of compensates for that stuff a little bit more. And so you'll see that sometimes it's a little more floaty maybe with the camera. And some people even thought a few years back that I was actually having someone hold the camera up while I was driving, which is not the case, but it has a little bit of movement to it, and that really helps to compensate for those bumps a little bit more. And yeah, I think I also just kind of get lucky with especially new cars. They have better refinement, and you have less A-pillar, jitters and stuff like that. That certainly helps as well. So I think, that is part of it, because I did notice, for example, with this new camera, whenever I was filming a review in the ND Miata, which is light and shakes around a little bit more and stuff with that A-pillar, that camera was shaking, and there were a couple parts where I had to cover it over with B-roll of some other shot because it was just like too shaky whenever I was going over bumps and stuff. And so there are some cars where I do kind of have to get a little bit creative with the editing to make it look decent. But usually it's just stuff like that, like really small stuff like the Miata or any other vehicle where there's a lot of A-pillar and cowl shake that I have to worry about that. But most of these modern vehicles are like tanks, and they're super solid, and so it doesn't take a whole lot of stabilization to get the camera to work. But yeah, so interesting question there. Thanks for asking that. And thanks to Newt Media here for linking that. So yeah, it's and he also mentioned going for the Lariat trim for the F-150. Yeah, definitely go for at least a Lariat if you're going for the F-150, because you get a Lariat for like 48 grand and you get leather seats and stuff. It makes way more sense than paying 58 grand for an XLT. Like I said, it's a super bizarre configuration Ford has for that. Austin says, hey Matt, considering a new fun daily, your thoughts on RS3 versus Supra? So obviously, they're going to be very different experiences with all-wheel drive versus rear-wheel drive and stuff. So it really comes down to what you value. Personally, now I have not driven an RS3 very much. I did a 15-minute little quick drive video in one on a little test drive event that I was at, and that was it. So admittedly, I don't have as much experience with the RS3. But from my experience with that, if you're in the snow belt, or, you need a very tiny back seat for occasional uses with small people or things, the RS3 obviously is going to make a lot more sense because you have no back seat in the Supra. But as far as if you're just worried about you and maybe one other passenger, and you don't care about practicality and you just want something fun, Supra, hands down, way more fun because it's more tail happy, which to me is an instant smile on your face whenever it starts twitching in the back a little bit there and stuff with the power. It sounds really good. The RS3 also does sound very good, but the Supra has more crackles and pops and stuff, which, depending on how you feel about that, is either a pro or a con, but I love that. I just think the Supra is way more exciting, and it's a little more intense with this acceleration. Obviously, you have a little more horsepower in the Supra, but also just that ZF8 speed in those things. I mean, it just rips off the shifts. And man, the Supra I love. I still love the Supra. And I mean, I've said this many times before, but if the Mustang wasn't a thing, if there was no such thing as a Mustang, especially a Mustang Bullet, 100% I'd be driving and owning a Supra right now. I would have a Supra in the garage without a second thought. That would be it. It would be a Supra all day, every day. I love them that much. They're fantastic cars. So can't recommend the Supra enough. All right. So we have Austin. He says he's coming from a WRX. So if you're coming from a WRX, you'll probably appreciate the RS3 if you're looking for basically a WRX on steroids in some ways, just with a smaller back seat. Go for the RS3 100%. But if you're looking for something different, like I said, Supra is fantastic. So yeah, and Newt says he's driven the Z4s, and yeah, they're also very much fun especially with that top down. Then you get the super sound with no roof. Fantastic. Yeah, I love the Z4 as well. And that's another car that would be in the running if I was shopping for convertibles for sure. Grizzly says top 3 favorite cars. I think for me, it's all exotic stuff. It probably would be the Ferrari 812 GTS, the Ferrari GTC4 Lusso, and then the third one, it's either a tie between the Bugatti Chiron and I don't know. It probably would just be like the LaFerrari or something like that, and those are probably my top 3. I'm a big Ferrari fan, even though I've actually only driven, I've only driven 2 Ferraris in my life, and they were both very short experiences. Yeah, I'm still a huge Ferrari fan. All right. Dennis says, hey, Matt, I don't know if you saw my question before, but would love to see if you could come to Woodward Dream Cruise this August and do a bullet meetup. I'd love to. Yeah. If everything is kind of more back to normal this year, I'd love to do the Woodward Dream Cruise again. I loved it last time I did it in 2019. It was a lot of fun. And I did the Mustang Alley event, which I met up with a few other bullet owners for that. That was cool. But yeah, I'd love to come out again this year. This year I can't really commit to anything because it's really, I've never had a kid before. And so, having a baby and stuff to deal with, I'm sure I probably won't be able to do as much this year as I would like to, but we'll see how that all plays out and how much I'm able to balance everything. So we'll see what I can do. But yeah, I'd like to come to Woodward for sure. It's an easy drive from Pittsburgh, and it was a lot of fun, a very cool event. And that could potentially be a really cool thing to do with the baby. Although if I did bring the whole family up, then we would be taking Beth's Mercedes. I would not be having the Bullet most likely. But and Sally's actually asking, more important, how is Beth feeling? She's doing really well, actually. It's really awesome. She's just here in the last month or so to go for her, and she's doing really, really well. It's obviously, feet are sore and stuff like that, obviously. But other than that, yeah, she's doing really well. And we're both just really, really excited. So it's getting crazy. It's getting down to the wire here. Not much more time left to go. We're getting all the baby stuff set up and getting her room all ready to go and all that. So it's very, very exciting. But yeah, thank you for asking, Sally. Lucas says, hey, Matt, besides winter tires, what else do you do to daily your Mustang in the winter? Well, I don't daily the Bullet, and I don't even drive the Bullet in the winter most of the time. But back when I did daily the Mustang and drive it in the winter, it was just the winter tires. That was it. And then just picking my battles as well. I kind of had to be smart. Here in Pittsburgh, we do have a lot of hills and stuff. So there was some times where I was selective in my roads that I would take if I knew I was going to be driving on snow in the Mustang, because starting on a hill in a Mustang, even with snow tires, it's an uphill battle, pun intended. It's a little bit challenging. So that's really the only thing, though. But yeah, the Bullet mostly sits in the garage all winter. This winter, I did have to drive it a little bit because we were showing our house, and I didn't want the Bullet sitting in the garage while we were opening our house to strangers. So I did actually have to drive it short distances just to get it out of the house and park it, somewhere else. And so I did drive it, and even with that, I just made sure I picked my battles. I didn't drive it on days where it was wet. I only drove it on days where it was, dry and stuff. But obviously, if you're daily driving, you don't have that luxury. So I'd really just say snow tires, and make sure that the roads you're going on, and know how to pick the right roads and stuff whenever you're encountering snow. But it's totally doable. I did it in the Mustangs. I did it in my BRZ back in the day as well. It's totally doable. So New Media says, here come the dad jokes. Yep, that's it. It's going to be bad. My dad is famous for his dad jokes. He even wrote a book about them. Yeah, I'm sure I'll inherit some of that a little bit. Noel's asking if we're having a boy or a girl. We are having a girl. So that's going to be exciting being a girl dad. I've heard it's really, really awesome. So I'm looking forward to that. And Rachel says, what's your family car? It's my wife's C300. She's a 2019 Mercedes C300. And we have not done a review on it. I did post about it on my Instagram back when she got it almost 2 years ago now. Yeah, that's the family car for now. And yeah, it's a 3-year lease. So the lease will be up around this time next year, and we will be car shopping. We will most likely be going for a Mercedes GLB though, because that's what Beth has her eye on for the next vehicle, and that's gives you the SUV practicality, but it's not quite so massive, and still drives pretty well from what I've seen. I've not actually driven one yet, but my other friends that have reviewed them and stuff have said it's a really good car, and so I'm hoping to get some more Mercedes press vehicles here this year, and hopefully get a GLB to actually try out for a week. So Robert says, Matt, what are you drinking there? It's a bubbly. It's the cherry flavor. I'm big into the sparkling waters and stuff. But he says, real question, what would you buy for around 25 grand? Also, congrats on your continued success. I really appreciate it. The success all goes back to you guys watching the videos. If you guys don't watch, then the success will end. So I really appreciate the support. It's all thanks to you guys. But as far as what to buy for 25 grand, that totally comes down to what your preferences are, what you need it to do, where you live. All that will kind of influence that. And if you do have a lot of follow-up questions, I always recommend anyone that would like more advice, you can send me a message on the Facebook page for Matt Maran Motoring, and I can go through, kind of narrow down the list of, stuff you might be considering and stuff. I'm always happy to help people find a car that they're going to love. And so, yeah, just if you send me, what you're looking for. Do you need 4 doors? Are you okay with 2 doors? Do you need front-wheel drive, rear-wheel drive, all-wheel drive? Do you like handling? Do you like straight line power? A little bit of both, those types of things. We can kind of dive into, what might fit you the best. But there's lots of good choices out there. That's one great thing. We are spoiled for choices these days. There's so many awesome cars out there. It's great. And Donald Zaramp says, hey, Matt, should I get a GTI or Veloster N? Which do you think is more engaging? Veloster N all day, every day. GTI is probably a better daily driver. It's more comfortable. It's more mature. But the Veloster N is fun because it's a little more immature. The crackles and the pops, sharper handling. It feels lighter, more adjustability with the drive modes and stuff. It's just way more fun, in my opinion. Hands down, that's probably the easiest question of the night. I'd go for a Veloster N over the GTI, hands down. Other questions here. Noel says at 25 grand, buy all the Porsche Cayman you can get. That's a great choice if you can, if you can find one that's reliable and stuff at 25 grand. I'm still leery about old German cars. They kind of seem to let people down a good bit. And actually, my wife was just watching iJustine's Instagram story. I don't know if any of you follow tech stuff, but iJustine has a Mercedes that apparently has left her stranded today. And so it's not starting. And I'm like, those older Mercedes, I could tell from the interior it was an older one. It's just like, that's why with Beth's Mercedes, we only lease them. After 3 or 4 years, I have no faith in German luxury vehicles because they can get definitely dicey with the electronics. And so we just stick to the leases. All right, other questions here. Thank you so much, Cole, for the super chat. He says, opinion on the 2015 Porsche Macan Turbo. Macan is actually one of the few vehicles that I still have never driven. It's kind of crazy. Obviously, Porsche doesn't send me press vehicles. I wish they did, but they're very selective with who they give press vehicles to. And I am not nearly high enough up the food chain to ever get Porsches. But I would love to test one out someday. But they seem very awesome. I think the holdup with Porsche is with the Macans, they're a little bit smaller than all the competitors, so you don't get as much space. So it's a little less practical, and you're paying more than all the competitors. So it's not a good value. Obviously, if you're looking at Porsches, generally you're not concerned about value a whole lot, but I think they're awesome. If you can afford paying the premium for the Porsche, then you don't care about, sacrificing the practicality a little bit. Macans seem awesome from everything that I've seen and heard, but haven't experienced that. Newt Media, though, has driven bunches of them, I'm sure, so he could probably give you some thoughts on them. He says, yeah, I love the Macans, but they are still a Q5 with a body kit, unfortunately. I've heard some people say it's more than that, though, as far as what they've done to it and stuff. But yeah, you've driven it and I haven't, so I'll take your word for it, Newt. But that's interesting. Yeah, and honestly, the Q5, I've driven the SQ5, so I guess maybe I have a little bit of experience with that platform. But yeah, I think Macans seem pretty sweet. They look really cool too. I think they're awesome. But yeah, And Donald's Ramp says he's been watching since Super Dorks fan days. I really appreciate all of you that have been watching since then. I know the name probably threw some people off because there's so many people that like still like comment on a video, like a recent video, and they're like, oh wait, is this that Subaru guy? Like, I guess, I dropped off the algorithm or whatever, and so people didn't see my stuff in their sub feeds or whatever, and then they re-find me and their like mind is blown that I'm still around and stuff because it's been a while since I changed the name. But yeah, so and Rick Racer 2006 says, as I was saying, my mom is at long last getting a Bronco Sport. Well, congrats. It's awesome. Hopefully she enjoys it. I will be getting a Bronco Sport in the beginning of April as a press vehicle. So I'll be able to finally test that out and see how that is. But yeah, it seems like they've been getting some pretty good reviews. People seem to like them. And hopefully your mom enjoys hers. But congrats to her on the new car. Noel says, are you getting your daughter a Legacy for her first car? We'll see, what the car world is like in the next 15 years or 16 years. It's going to be wild. I mean, because, I was just thinking actually about this in the past day or two here with the whole like 2035 deadline for everything going electric and stuff, with at least GM and a few other car companies. Like, obviously, she will inherit the bullet or whatever if she wants it. But aside from that, like, I don't even know how car shopping will go for her, and as far as how much stuff will actually even be driver based, and if it's going to be a lot of autonomous stuff and things like that, I have no clue. But hopefully we can get her something fun and see, if she's even into cars. It's totally okay if she isn't, but we'll see, what ends up happening with all that. But it'll be fun to do all that kind of car shopping. Whatever I get her, it will be safe. So I will not get her a Legacy, if it's at least an older Legacy like mine, because those will not be as safe. Definitely want to get her something super safe. But aside from that, we'll have to see what's out there in 15 years. All right, other questions here. Grizzly says, if you could work with any other YouTuber on a car review, who would it be? I feel like you and Doug DeMuro would get along. I mean, I've never met Doug, so I don't know about that. I think there's a lot of other YouTube reviewers that I've collabed with here in the past few years, and I'm really good friends with a lot of them. And so I'm trying to think of ones that I haven't worked with that I would like to work with, though. Doug would be very cool just, to meet him, because he's the rock star of the car reviewing world right now. I mean, everyone's jealous of his view counts. That's for sure. It's kind of crazy. He's just killing it. And he's found, the key to success, I guess. And he's doing really, really good, and he does really good videos. So, but as far as others, yeah, Savage Geese is one that I've worked with in the past. We actually, if you watch my Toyota Highlander review, the first review I did on that on the launch event, me and him were drive partners, me and Mark. And so that was awesome to be a drive partner with him. He's super cool. Him and Jack are awesome. They're some of my favorite reviews, actually. Whenever I do watch car reviews, their videos are some of my go-to videos. Their stuff is so funny. I really connect with that type of sense of humor that he has, and it's really funny. So I really like those. Throttle House is one I haven't actually ever encountered them. The Straight Pipe guys, though, I've been on events with them before, and they're super cool, and it's always great to bump into them. I bumped into them at SEMA, I think, as well. Been a couple of times we've, kind of been at the same events and got to hang out and stuff. So I'm always down to collab with them. Redline Reviews, as Newt Media points out, was a good combo of Sophion and me. It's always great hanging out with him. He's been a drive partner a bunch in the past. And so, there's all kinds. I also love having Engineering Explained as a co-driver on a few launch events we've done. We both were partners on the Supra event, and that was awesome to be able to drive around with him all day in the new Supra. That was fantastic. I'll never forget that. I mean, it was like, on the Supra launch, and we were both just discovering all the crackles and pops in the Supra for the first time. And I was actually in the passenger seat, and Jason was driving, and we were just like in like first or second gear, and he would just like accelerate to red line and then just let it drop all the way down. And we would just go blah, 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 like for like, it would do it for like, 20 seconds or something, going all the way down the rev range. And then he would just accelerate and then do it again. And it was like over and over and over again. It was hilarious. So much fun. We were also drive partners on the GT500 event. That was fantastic fun. I also loved riding with Shmi 150 on the 2020 Corvette launch. Me and him were partners up for that, and so that was very cool to, be able to, be a co-driver with Shmi 150, something that very few people can say they've ever done. And so that was a huge privilege and honor to, be doing that with him. And I've collabed with a lot of people, and it's been a lot of fun. And I'm always down to collab with others. It's always a good time. Really, the only thing that's like, whenever I'm on drive events, it's like I hope that I'm with another YouTuber, because if I'm with someone who's like a journalist that just like writes stuff in their notebook all day and stuff, then it's not quite as much fun, because then I have to like keep apologizing for being like, oh, I'm gonna film now, like we have to be quiet while I like talk on camera, and have to stop and set up the camera and do all my stand-up stuff, and it's all big inconvenience if they're not also video people. So it's always just nice to be on a launch event with another video person, because a lot of the people that still go on these events, it's so much easier for the journalists that just like show up and then they just drive the car all day, and they like go back to their hotel and they're like, here's what I thought about it. And then obviously writing a story is a lot of work, but on the actual event itself, it's a whole lot less stressful for them, because they can just, enjoy the event. Whereas with me, I'm like running around like a chicken with my head cut off, trying to film everything in time, because it's always a very crunch schedule on these press trips and stuff. And so, it's a little bit easier if you're a normal, journalist. But anyway, so little tangent there, but there's lots of people that I'm, always excited to work with and collab with. Fastline says, how's it like acting? I guess you're me talking about my expert, extra experiences. I blended two words there. My extra experiences of being on movie sets. Those of you who haven't followed the channel for a while might not know, I did a video, I think it was probably maybe 6 months ago at this point, about all of the movies I've been in the past. That was something that I used to do back when I had more free time, was be an extra on movie sets, and did some acting and stuff back in the day a little bit. But it was a lot of fun. Aside from doing car reviews and accelerating in all these fun, exciting cars, being on a movie set is hands down the second biggest rush I've ever experienced in my life. It's just so much fun being on an actual movie set with movie stars and stuff like that. It's a wild experience and a ton of fun. It's a really cool thing. Anyway, so we have Grizzly saying, I think a lot of Doug's success comes from his simplicity, simple camera setup, simple videos. Possibly, but I honestly think, Doug's success, in my opinion at least, really comes down to his personality. He's hilarious. I mean, I've been following him since he did his articles on Jalopnik back in the day. And, he's just a really funny guy, and he just, it's just very entertaining. And so I think, that entertainment value really is what helps it to kind of, I guess, resonate with a larger audience, whereas with my stuff, it's more like consumer advice. I'm here to show you every nook and cranny, not to make jokes about them, but to be like, this is like practical advice and stuff like that. And I think, I'm a lot more dry with, my presentations and stuff like that, where I think with him, it's more of an entertainment thing than it is a car buying, advice kind of thing. Although he does give a lot of really good advice in his videos, don't get me wrong, but I think he's just a really funny personality, I think. And I think that really helps him a lot too. Because trust me, if a simple camera setup and simple videos, were the key, I think that, a lot of people would not bother with all the work that they put into making really impressive looking videos. I mean, even back when Motor Trend was, doing their very impressive videos, and the, tens of thousands of dollars it cost for them to film each of their reviews and stuff. I mean, they would not put that much money into that stuff if, they could just get by with simple stuff. I think, my stuff's pretty simple as well. I use, 3 cameras. I use a little $600 Panasonic for my main camera. I have a GoPro that's a GoPro Hero 4. So I don't know how old that is at this point, but at least 5 years old. And then, I just have a little Sony Cybershot to film the forward facing view. And that's it. I have a very inexpensive camera setup. I do not use anything fancy. And, yes, I do a little bit more editing than Doug does, I guess, possibly. But That's about it. My stuff's pretty simple like his is. And clearly I don't even get 1/100th of the view count that he does. So yeah, I wish that was the case, because trust me, if like I've talked with other YouTubers about that. They're like, man, I wish we could get away with just like setting up an iPhone and just talking and that being the end of it. It would make my life so much easier if I didn't have to edit everything and go into all the extra work that I had to do. But that Washington, thank you so much for the super chat. He says, how long do you think it will be until America outlaws internal combustion engine cars, or at least makes it very difficult to own them? Personally disappointed in Volvo and GM. I don't know if it's ever going to be outlawed. I think that, it potentially could be, but if you look at stuff and how things progressed, because for me, I think that history is a very good indicator about a lot of this stuff. And if you look at, how muscle died in the mid 70s, and it was a combination of a bunch of things, but it was, yes, gas was really hard to get. And, that whole thing was part of it, but it was also insurance costs were really high and all that kind of stuff. So I honestly think before it needs to be outlawed, I think that there's going to be a stigma around gas cars that will, if they are going to die, which I don't know, like I talked about earlier with Porsche working on their synthetic fuel and stuff, there might be some ways to kind of save the gas engine and, all that. But I think honestly, it's going to be, just people not wanting gasoline engine vehicles if, they are more concerned about, cutting down their emissions and stuff like that personally, then, they're going to go for, electric stuff or whatever. But then I also think that, before they get outlawed, I think there will be more of a stigma around gas vehicles, and there's going to just be more insurance costs because, it's just going to be, I think, it seems like a lot of the electric stuff is going to be the front running stuff for the autonomous stuff, which the insurance companies are foaming at the mouth about, because, if they can remove the driver from the equation, then you'll have a lot less car accidents, and these insurance companies will basically just be pocketing money for the fun of it and not even have to pay anything out ever. So, I think that, insurance will probably get rid of gas cars before laws do. That's just my hunch. Because I think it really is going to come down to autonomous stuff killing older cars more so than it is, the electric stuff. So that's my little thought of that. But I think it's going to be a long time before that's the case, because again, if we work out the math here on this, and if you have, GM, for example, going fully electric, not until 2035, and that's for a brand new, someone buying a brand new General Motors vehicle, they can only buy electric in 2035 if they even hit that target, which I think is still kind of optimistic. But regardless, if they actually do that, then again, you can't make it illegal to have a gas car until those cars are super cheap for everyone to buy. So whenever that electric car in 2035 gets old enough and depreciates enough to be a $5,000 vehicle, then maybe you can have a discussion about outlawing gas stuff. But then even still, you have people that live out somewhere in the middle of nowhere that can't charge. And also, we have to talk about all the apartment complexes, people that park on the street that can't be running extension cords from their apartment into their car. And until we have the infrastructure to charge all these electric cars and stuff, there's no way it'll be illegal. That doesn't make any sense. And so I think it's going to be a long, long time. I think you're talking at least 2050 before that stuff is actually outlawed. And that's optimistic. I think it's going to be beyond 2050 before they even, try that kind of stuff. Again, unless something changes or something accelerates things, I don't think we have to worry about that. And, all those goals, again, are goals, and a lot can change in the next 10 or 15 years even. And that could even change as far as, Porsche doing the synthetic fuel. If that gets to be super common and popular and gets rid of the stigma of emissions, and you don't have to have any shame for burning gasoline because you have the synthetic fuel and all that kind of stuff, then, maybe gasoline cars will never go away, and maybe that is what saves them and keeps them around forever. So I don't think the sky is falling just yet. I think we have a lot of time. Look at, how much has changed in the past 15 years. 15 years ago, Facebook wasn't a thing. Smartphones weren't a thing. That is just what has happened here in this past 15 years. And how much can change 15 years from now? It's, who knows what kind of world we'll be living in. But I think that just based on the economics, gas cars will still be around. But But thank you so much for the super chat. He says, Smile per Mile says, have you met the Topher from Winding Road magazine? I love their POV videos. I did meet Chris, from Winding Road. That was several years back, but we've bumped into each other at several different events, mostly car shows and stuff like that, like the auto shows. I always see him at the Detroit Auto Show, and he's also a super nice guy, super cool. We're friends on Facebook and stuff, so I keep up to date with all his stuff there too. But he's a super nice guy, and their stuff is also really good. Those POV videos are super, super, super cool. And I often watch the supercar ones whenever I'm like, man, I wonder what it's like to drive an Aston Martin DB11. And then I go watch that video and I'm like, man, that's got to be like so awesome. And so I'll live vicariously through them every once in a while whenever it's a supercar that I'm interested in. But yes, man, yes, says opinions on the new Volkswagen ID4 review soon. I'm hoping to get one relatively soon. Right now I know they're kind of making the rounds with the first rung of journalists that are getting them. I'm not in the invite list for that. So once they're in the press fleets, then I will probably get it. But it's kind of tricky with the electric cars for me because my press fleet office that sends me stuff is right around like 230 or 240 miles away. I get my press vehicles out of Washington, D.C. And so every week they drive from Washington, D.C. to my house to drop off the press vehicles, then drive all the way back. So a lot of these vehicles, the electric vehicles, are going to be range limited. And I've been going back and forth with the fleet company about trying to get a Mach-E here. And they're going to try and do it. Because, I think the one that they have in the fleet is rated for 270 miles of range. So they should be able to get to my house on it, but it'll be close. So they might just deliver it. And I told them they can just even deliver it with like almost a dead battery. And I'll just plug it into my super slow normal plug in my house, get a few miles of charge into it that way, and then take it to a charge point charger or something and kind of juice it up so I can actually review it. But going to try and have to get a little bit creative with that because until the press vehicles are over 300 miles of range for these electric cars, it's going to be kind of tricky for their drivers to get them up here unless they flatbed it or something. But hopefully I'll be able to get an ID4 here and review it at some point because Volkswagen does send me press vehicles, so I'm sure they'd love to send me one someday, but not sure how that's all going to play out. And Steven, thank you so much for the super chat. He says, forgot to set alarm. I need a few more notices. Well, I'm glad you're joining us here. We'll be on for another 10 minutes or so, but then I'll have to wrap it up. But you also said, great recent review on the Kia. Hate to ask, but what do you think private party versus sell to dealer price of a 2019 Bullet with 3,000 miles only, all accessories except for cars, paid 51 grand without tax? So you can obviously go on like Kelley Blue Book to, kind of price that out yourself. I don't know exactly what something like that would go for. I know I've seen some used Bullets with higher miles going under 40 grand used. I think there were some that were selling for around 38 or so. With only 3,000 miles, though, it's super low. I would guess you'll probably be able to get a little over 40 for it. But the problem is, since they made too many Bullets, there was a lot sitting on dealer lots, and there still are some sitting on dealer lots, and they're heavily discounted. I think some people have been talking about how they bought a brand new Bullet for like 42 or 43 grand. So, trying to get something over 40 is probably going to be tough. I would say safely, if you don't want to wait forever, you probably end up selling it for something in the high 30s, unfortunately. That's the tough thing about buying a vehicle and selling it, within a couple of years, is that depreciation is steep. I think that's probably where you're going to end up landing, but definitely check out Kelley Blue Book and see, where it ends up for you. But, hopefully you can hang on to it. I don't know if you're just not into it anymore or what, but I still love mine. And I think that the depreciation has kind of, bottomed out a little bit. I don't think they're going to go super low. Typically, Bullets seem to hold their value a little bit better than regular Mustangs do. So hopefully it doesn't depreciate too much quicker. GP, thank you so much for the super sticker. I really appreciate it. And I see you do have a question here. You say, any info on the upcoming CRV? There was some spy pictures that I retweeted on Twitter. I didn't talk about it in the weekly update because I have to pay for every spy picture that I show whenever it's from those official photographers. And it's way too much money that it ends up, I would actually lose money making a weekly update if I had to pay for the pictures. And so, Yeah, but as far as the CRV, it looks like, if you saw those spy pictures, it's going to be longer. There's rumors it'll offer a third row. And then mechanically, there's talk it could be carryover. As far as mechanicals go, we'll have to see about that. But it definitely looks like it's going to be a good bit longer. And it's pretty well camouflaged in those spy pictures. So I'm not sure too much about the styling aside from just the extra size there. But Steven says he still has his 2020 GT500. Well, yeah, then I can totally understand. And you have a C8 Corvette, so you got quite a collection there. So yeah, I'd say you can probably you have all the other fun stuff, so you're not going to miss the Bullet too much. Although the Bullet is still the only one with a manual out of those three. So, but I'm sure maybe you have other manual transmission stuff as well. But yeah, that's probably what I think the Bullet's going to go for. So yeah, and then Fastline says, I hate how the only car that Ford has is the Mustang. I love the Ford Fusion. We had one as a rental car. Yeah, the Ford Fusion is a really good car. I actually rented one for a week. It was back, I think that was 2018. Yeah, because I had or maybe it was early 2019, because I had the Bullet. I couldn't drive that in the snow, but I needed to go to the Detroit Auto Show, and I also needed to do a video out in New York. And so I drove that thing all over for a week there. Put a ton of miles. I probably put almost 1,000 miles on a Fusion. Really great cars. And I really liked the couple that I had. The only thing about the Fusion Sport was it just felt so heavy in the corners. That was the only downfall of that one. But actually, the 2.0 turbo versions were fantastic and really good handlers. And I think the Fusion is a great car. So Brandon A says, I need to spend less time on YouTube, and I have unsubscribed from all but my favorite channels. Definitely keeping Matt Moran motoring. I appreciate it. Like I said, it all comes back to you guys, and I can't keep doing this without your support. And especially, these days there's a lot of competition. There's a ton of competitors, and I'll be the first to admit there's a lot of new channels that have better camera equipment, have more exciting vehicles and stuff like that. But I really appreciate all of you who stick with me. Hopefully, you still enjoy my point of view on the cars and how I do the reviews. Hopefully it's helpful for a lot of you. I know it has helped a lot of you so far, and hopefully it continues to help a lot more people in the future. But yeah, it all goes back to you guys watching the videos at the end of the day. That's what allows me to keep doing this. Without the views, this all would just have to stop. So I really appreciate every one of you that watches. It's always very helpful. Robert, thank you so much for the super chat. He says, not a question, but keep up the weekly updates. I certainly will. Thanks for continuing to watch them. I really do love, especially the love on the weekly updates. That's really been the most encouraging thing, because I know the weekly update or the car reviews are very hit or miss, depending on the week and, what car I have. There's some that I know appeal to some of you, and, some cars that just don't. And I totally understand that. So, I can't really count on the car reviews to do well. And there's even some that I think are going to do really well that don't do well. And, some that I think are not going to do well that do well. So that's all very, hard to predict. But the weekly updates, I love the support from that. It's so awesome that so many of you, make it part of your weekend routine, and you watch it every single week, and watch it all the way through, which very much helps the videos and the channel if you watch it all the way through. But that really, really helps. And I just thank you guys so much for watching those weekly updates every week. It's always awesome to read the comments from everyone that, says how much they enjoy those. My voice is going out here. We have about 5 more minutes to go. But Steven, thank you so much for another super chat. He says, thanks. I'm ready to keep a battery charger set up hooked get a battery charger set up hooked to a battery. Any better ways? I like how C8 plugs in anyway on Bullet. Yeah, so the battery charger that I use on the Bullet, I just use a little battery tender, and it has the very small little clips, so it doesn't get in the way too much. So I can actually, if I position them just right, I can lower the hood and still get the battery tender to work. But if you have a normal battery tender, you're going to have to just have the hood up all the way. And that's what I actually did this past winter, because there was just, the battery got a little bit low in the Bullet, but it wasn't low enough that I needed to have it on all winter. But just there in January, I had to hook it up, and I had it on there for a couple of days just to top off the battery, and I just covered the engine bay with cloths and stuff so that it didn't get a bunch of dirt on it or bugs or all that kind of stuff. But I just did that, and it was fine. But if you have a big garage and you have all your sports cars all lined up there, I agree that if you can get a battery tender that has the small clips, you can keep the hood down and it doesn't look quite as bad. And Newt Media says, not a lot of guys do weekly updates. It's awesome to have a consistent, reliable source of automotive news. I appreciate that. I know a lot of you really do enjoy that. And there are some others that do, car news stuff. It's not usually weekly stuff, but yeah, I agree. It's kind of still a niche that others aren't doing. And so I'm glad I don't have too much competition there, because I know I don't have the most exciting setup here. Although hopefully this new setup is a little bit more exciting for some of you. But yeah, I'm going to continue to work on that and make it a little bit cooler and put some stuff on the wall over there, trying to point correctly. But yeah, so hopefully, it gets a little more exciting. I'm going to try and work on the lighting a little bit still, but I really enjoy doing the weekly updates. It's fun seeing all the new stuff coming out every week. Even if there's a lot of autonomous electric stuff and everything, there's still a lot of really fun gasoline powered vehicles and electric cars that, that there's a lot of enthusiasts in these car companies that are still making stuff that they're passionate about. And I think we have still a very bright future for the car world. And it's going to be all kinds of new stuff coming out here in the next few years. I mean, like I said, we have the GR Corolla coming, most likely. We have the, BRZ and the new 86 and new Mustangs and Chargers. And there's all kinds of fun stuff coming here. So lots of good things to look forward to still. Fastline asks here, one of the last questions, he says, do watching the ads help as well? Yeah, if you don't skip the ads, that certainly does help, but I don't ever want to ask anyone to watch advertisements for videos that I'm interested in. But yeah, I mean, watching the ads, watching the videos, really, honestly though, for the algorithm, the two big things are watching the video all the way through, and then also anytime a video from the channel is recommended to you, that is the big signal for the thing. If their recommendations are getting clicked on, that really pushes that channel big time, because the algorithm's like, oh, we're doing it right. We're recommending them stuff they really like watching, and this channel has a very high click-through rate of stuff where, if there's a high click-through rate, then that means that my thumbnails are attractive, that the topic is very interesting, and that you're happy. Basically, YouTube just wants to make you happy and keep you watching. So if, the best way to optimize the channel is anytime you see a recommended video, click on the recommendation, for the channel, and then watch it all the way through to the end. Those two things send YouTube a very clear signal that you love the channel and you are very interested in the videos, and they're very good videos in your opinion because you watched it all the way through. And whenever they see that signal, then that makes them want to push it to other people, because they're like, wow, well, if these people are all watching it all the way through and they're immediately clicking on the recommendation whenever they see it, then it must be, a really good video. And so that's why they'll push those more. And so that's why it's kind of a snowball effect. And that's why you kind of see, some of these larger channels that it really snowballs fast, because, you see the recommendations, and then it gets recommended to more people, and then the reach gets bigger, and then the channel gets bigger, and then the reach gets bigger again. It kind of just compounds on top of itself. And that's why it's really hard for a lot of newer YouTubers to kind of break through, because this machine just keeps wanting to recommend stuff that's really popular. And so, but it does try and custom tailor to you and, what you're interested in and stuff. But Steven, thank you so much for the light contribution. It's very generous. I really appreciate all the super chats from everyone here tonight. And we have Jorge here has another super chat. I thank you so much for that as well. He says, diaper money. I really appreciate it. You guys are the best. Thank you so much for joining here on this live stream. And like I said, hopefully I will be able to do another one next month. We'll have to see, if the baby's here yet. And if she is, then, I might see if I can do it if I'm not too exhausted. Or maybe I'll just, if she's not here yet, then I can still end up doing one. And maybe I'll just have to cut it off early if, the baby decides to come. But we'll have to see what happens. But anyway, in the meantime, yeah, stay tuned for all the reviews coming this month. I got a lot of cool stuff lined up. Like I said, I have the F-150 here this week. Next week, I will have a Ram T-Rex in the driveway, so I'll be posting that towards the end of March. Then I'll have a Durango Hellcat coming in, Bronco Sport. I'm going to hopefully have a Veloster N with a dual clutch here sometime in the next month or so, and hopefully a Mach-E in month or two. We'll have to see. So lots of exciting stuff in the pipeline there. But anyway, yeah, that's it for this weekly, or for not the weekly update, man, I'm getting tired, for the live stream. But anyway, thank you guys very much for watching. Thank you again to especially all of you who did the super chats, but also everyone that had all the great conversation here, all the great questions. Really appreciate it. I appreciate you guys tuning in. And yeah, stay tuned. I'll be having another review here this coming week, and it'll be another interior review with Beth. It's been a couple of weeks since we've had an interior review with her, but she'll be making a comeback here. We'll see how those play out, once we have the baby, but hopefully we can keep those up. And I thank you guys for the support on those as well. Anyway, thank you guys very much for watching. I'll see you on the next one. Take care.